Or deemest thou that the people of the Kaf and Rakim are a wonder among our portents? Kaf means cave. According to the Islamic scholar Maududi, there are different opinions about the meaning of the word Rakim. Some of the Sahaba and Tabi'in were of the opinion that Rakim is the name of the place where this event took place, and that this place is between Aqaba and Palestine. Some commentators are of the opinion that Rakim is the inscription in memory of those who slept in the cave. So why are the stories and historical realities of Ashab al-Kahf and Rakim described in the Quran? The main reason they are described in the Quran is that the Jews of Medina taught the Meccan delegation questions that only a true prophet would know, and asked them to put the prophet to the test with these questions. By telling this story, the Quran was not only answering the Jews' questions, but also illuminating a historical background that spanned centuries. This also made it stand out from other cursory narratives. The fact that it uses motifs appropriate to the history of the interlocutor is the most obvious evidence. One of the most interesting references to unravel the background of this story is the word Kamu. It refers to a revolts community. The revolts religious groups remind us of Jewish history, and the fact that the question asked and the answer given are from the history of the same nation shows that we are on the right track. Historically, this word revolt in the verse refers to the Maccabean revolt. In Jewish history, the phenomenon of believers taking refuge in caves and mountains brings to mind the Maccabean revolts. Forced to worship idols brought into their temples and forced to eat pork. This led to riots and caused the believers of that period to flee to the mountains and deserts. The books of the Maccabees, which are not included in the Torah and other canonical books of the Old Testament, describe this period in detail. There are many references to this period in the Quran. Even as it begins to tell the story of these brave young men, it refers to Hebrew words. According to scholars, the word Rakim means both the name of the place and the inscription. This word gives us very important clues. Rakim in Hebrew. Rakim means rolling, forging, goldworking, and is also used in descriptions such as skillfully crafted. The word is also mentioned in the Torah as a place name given to the Benjamin clan. The tribe of Benjamin is north of the Dead Sea. It was settled in the hills north of Jerusalem on the line leading to the Jordan. It seems to be a correct interpretation that Islamic scholars understand it as a place name and inscription. The narrative of the surah from beginning to end reflects the background of the history of the Maccabees. Some Islamic scholars have interpreted Ashab al-Kahf as the children of prominent and important people. This is a direct reference to the book of the Maccabees. The father of a group of young men described in the book is Matatyahu, a religious role model. And the children of this brave religious leader were equally brave. This corresponds to Fityatun in 1813. It comes from the root fata. It is an important usage as it means brave young men. Another reference is the use of the phrase "our people" in prayer in 1815. This is a reference not only to the similar statement about their own people in the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 7, verses 37, 38, but also to the fact that the Jews are the only group that we can religiously call a nation. The use of this phrase in the narrative of the martyrdom of the 7 brothers also reveals that the context of the story belongs to that time. One of the motifs in the surah is about this one nation taking other gods besides Allah. This was a Hellenistic influence, as well as the forced worship of idols by the emperor of the time. In 1815, this is clearly described. Also, the use of the Lord of the heavens and the earth in 1814 was a phrase used by the believers who were suffering from the persecution of this period. The background to the desperation in the prayers of Ashab al-Kahf in 1810 is that the Maccabees did not want to violate the Sabbath by fighting. Parallels a historical event in Maccabees 1, 2. Another motif is that the event described in the surah is related to a Jewish technical usage. The detail in 1812 of being awakened to know which group would calculate better is a reference to understand the technical dimension in 1825. The lunisolar calendar is a national calendar used by Jews to calculate their special days. In some years, especially on days like Shabbat, a month was added to the year at certain times to avoid confusion. Since the lunisolar calendar is based on the moon and the sun, these additions were necessary in some years. The long 300 solar years are actually equal to 309 lunar years. So the phrase, "they added 9 inches" in the verse has a technical meaning. It is a specific reference to the lunisolar calendar used by the Jews, and indeed, mathematically, 300 solar years equals 309 lunar years. The 300-year sleep also has historical significance. The Maccabi revolts took place between 167 BC and 160 BC, while 300 years later, the Bar Kokhba revolt took place between 132 AD and 135 AD. Since both revolts were Jewish revolts, the historical reference of this long period of slumber becomes clear. Some of the conversations between them after they woke up also reveal the impact of the persecution. When they go to buy food with coins in their hands, the emphasis on clean food is an evocation of the events they have experienced. If we remember that they lived in a period when the Seleucids forced them to eat pork, their emphasis on halal food, which we call kosher food for Jews, can be traced back to this date. Also, their shunning of their own people and not wanting to be recognized by them is a reference to the Jews who had apostatized under the influence of Hellenism. They are afraid that they will either apostatize or be stoned to death. In 1822, the prophet is asked not to argue with anyone about the number of these young men. The Jews disagree about their number, 3, 5, and 7. This is due to the compilation of the books of Maccabees, and the different versions in each different book of Maccabees about the number of the revolt's youths. In one book of Maccabees, it is said about the brave young men that they were 5 sons of a Cohen, while in another book they are said to be 7 sons of a mother. It even mentions 9 believers who ate grass in the mountains so that they would not be forced to eat pork. The categorization of Ashab al-Kahf and Rakim must be based on this usage. The children of the Cohen would have been scribes because of the culture of their fathers. This is exactly what the Ashab Rakim correspond to. The dispute about their number in the books of the Maccabees stems from the numbers given in the compiled texts. The Quran refers to this collection of apocryphal books. In Islamic narratives, the dog of the young is called Kitmir or Katamir. This is a name derived from the Arabic root tamiru. Tamiru means dates. The name formed from the Hebrew word tamar corresponds to Katamar. This name is part of the Maccabi song that is thousands of years old. It begins Tzadik Katamar Yifrak and means true. It means it will flourish like a date palm. Katamar is going to paradise because he is with the Tzaddik, the righteous. The young people are awakened, just like a dry date palm that grows green again. The date palm has a meaning for these young people. The Hasmoneans, Maccabees, adopted the date palm as a symbol of their victory in the Second Temple period. Later, the Romans placed on their coins the image of a defeated Judean sitting in despair under a date palm. Earlier, it was said that the Hebrew Rakem is also the name of a geographical region north of the Dead Sea. North of the Dead Sea refers to the Qumran community that lived there. This community was a community of believers like the Maccabees and their continuation. Paul Johnson, speaking of the militant monks of Qumran, said, "There was an elaborate room for calligraphers and an enormous collection of books. Also, given that this community lived in caves, it can be assumed that they were people of faith, inspired by Ashab al-Kahf and Rakim. The fact that they were so adept at writing is an appropriate use of the word Rakim. This region is also famous for its copper scrolls. Continuing this tradition, the Qumran community called their place of worship the House of Prostration, or Masjid for short. This is also a motif of 1821. The Quran does not use the word masjid for Christian churches and Jewish synagogues, but refers to them as savami, bia, and salawat. This specific use of the word masjid shows that the Quran is historically narrating events. The Qumran community, which is almost a continuation of the Young Braves, is paralleled in many ways. And thou hast not been reciting any book before it, nor hast thou been writing it with thine right hand, for then might the followers of falsehood have doubted.